Ever heard of electricity? Unless you've been living under a rock for all your life, I'm sure you've at least heard of it. It's the thing that has been a key ingredient for almost every man-made thing for about a century or so. It's that important. Try and think of something that wasn't made with electricity. You may have thought of the candle. It's basically just the pre-electricity equivalent of the light bulb after all. However, candles are made with electricity. All the candles you find in stores were either mass-produced in a factory, which, by the way, is powered by electricity, or are homemade by a small business with tools made in factories that run on electricity. Also, that lighter or match you're using, made in factory, powered by electricity. How about a tree? What about trees? Yeah. Well, a lot of trees aren't natural. A significant portion of them were planted by humans who used tools to plant them. And those tools, you guessed it, made in a factory. Since the tree in question is in a park, we can expect that it was planted fairly recently, sometime after electricity became the dominant power source of industries. Electricity is everywhere you look nowadays. However, if history unfolded differently, this could have not been the case. The events of the War of the Currents were a turning point in history for electricity and had a massive impact on electricity today. Here's a brief rundown. A long time ago, late 1800s, electricity was pretty uncommon. You could really only find it in big, dense cities for the most part. This is because, back then, moving electricity was difficult, to say the least. They used direct currents, abbreviated as DC, no, not the comics, to transport the energy throughout the city. However, at the time, DC currents weren't very good at long-range stuff, or reaching high voltages, or a lot of other things. The furthest DC could feasibly transport electricity at the time was about a mile, maybe more if you're lucky. However, one day, the alternating current, abbreviated as AC, came along and threatened DC's place as the dominant current. AC was different from DC, mostly in good ways. It could travel longer distances, it could reach super high voltages, and was even more cost-effective than DC. AC was clearly the superior current, but DC would not go down without a fight. And thus began the war between AC and DC. No, not the rock. So basically, this was a war between two people and a bonus fellow. Thomas Edison, George Westinghouse, and Nikola Tesla. You've probably heard of Thomas Edison. You know, the guy who idolized as a kid, as he was the one who invented the light bulb, and saved you from all those monsters in the dark. But when you got older, you were told that he didn't actually invent the light bulb. That was some other guy. You know, that guy? Yeah, he was on the side of DC, because his entire business was designed with the direct current in mind. If everyone switched to the alternating current, he'd be out of business. And according to Sun Tzu's famous book, The Art of Business, the #1 rule of business is you should not go out of business. And then there's this other guy, who you have probably never heard of unless you're a nerd or an electrician or something. His name's George Westinghouse, and he's the guy who is rooting for AC. Basically, this guy is an inventor of sorts. He had money and a dream. A dream to create an electric company that uses AC electricity. Something like that. And finally, a name you may have heard of, or a man you may have seen some questionable anthropomorphic fan art somewhere deep in the bowels of an art-sharing social media website called DeviantArt. Nikola Tesla. You may have noticed that this man looks nothing like Elon Musk's 2024 Tesla Model S, and this is because this man is not a motorized vehicle powered by electricity. This man is the man behind the advancement of the alternating current. His induction motor designed to run via an AC current, is what propelled AC off the ground. So, since Edison didn't want to get thrown out of his own business, he had to somehow prove that DC currents were better than AC. Except that would be hard to do, because AC is better than DC in almost every conceivable way. Except one. Not electrocuting people to death. So while Westinghouse was advertising the advantages of switching to the alternating current, Edison, well, publicly executed stray dogs and invented the electric chair using AC systems. A little messed up to say the least, but he had pretty much no other option if he wanted to win the current war. However, since the safety problem was pretty easily solved with simple safety precautions, for instance, putting the wires underground or not touching them without safety equipment, the safety problem didn't really help DC's case in the war. This was a losing game for Edison. He was losing so bad that he left his own company before losing the war. His company merged with some other DC electric company to form General Electric. By the time the Chicago's World Fair of 1893 came along, which is considered to be the final battle between AC and DC, AC had basically already won. Edison moved on to different things, Westinghouse Electric became very successful, and AC solidified its place in the world of electricity. And guess what else? You got access to electricity. Yes, you. You have electricity because AC won the war of the currents. And you have these two handsome fellows to thank for it. And with that, that's all I have to say.